Good evening, everybody. I'm Corinne. Back in the beginning of 2017, I put 2 Post-it notes on my front door. And one said, what's possible? And the other said, be in awe. Just as a little, as I go out the door, right? So in late January, I had my 7-year-old niece and nephew over, boy and girl. And we're heading out the door, and they had both just started learning to read. They were 6 at the time, and Brendan wrinkles up his nose and he goes, what's possible? He's like, Coco, what does that mean? So I was like, Brendan, what do you think that means? When we go out, what do you think? And he was wearing his Carson Wentz jersey, and he turns around and goes, Eagles will win the Super Bowl. And I was like, that's exactly, right? It was in 2017 and they turned around and won the Super Bowl day. But I was like, that's what's possible, right? And so Beatrice, not to be upstaged by Brendan, is like, be in a we. Right? The Post-it note says, be in awe. And she goes, she's like, be in a we. So, right, adult me wants to jump in and correct her. And without missing a beat, she goes, oh, I get it. We're in a we. There's 3 of us. Right? So I think this is pretty cool tonight, what's possible, and we're in a we. So that being said, I frequently speak in front of really large groups, and I don't get nervous. But this feels really intimate, and this does feel really vulnerable. So thank you for pushing me, Michael, to do it. I have 3 facepalm, but I'd like to twist it a little, Dave. And in the facepalm of the epiphany, of the aha, of the does the soul good, right? Of it's so obvious that we could have missed it. Kind of like be in a we, right? And if I had rushed past it, I would have missed it. So I want to talk about pancakes, I want to talk about a bake sale, and I want to talk about the tooth fairy. 1, pancakes. So I work for Habitat for Humanity with this beautiful team of people here. We sell homes to families who have never owned a home, probably the first person in their family to own a home. And often at a dedication, the family, they might be a little nervous, so I do a little what are you excited for? Just a little chit-chat. And so I said to this one mom, what is it? What are you excited for? And before I could even, she just started in and she goes, I start my days at about 4:30. I take a couple buses and subways in the L to get my kids to school in Old City, and then I reverse back across town to work in West Philly, and then back across town again for aftercare to get them. And she's like, when Saturdays roll around, I load the kids on the bus, and I gotta occupy my 7-year-old twins at the laundromat. And she said, what I'm most looking forward to is pajamas and pancakes on Saturday, because we have a washer and a dryer in our home. And that stopped me, right? And I even hear, just thinking about that, that's to me the there it is, right? The really obvious, right there. So pancakes, pajamas. The second thing that, the story, oh my God, right? So we've been repairing homes now for about 9 or 10 years. We repaired a home, owner occupied. The roof had started to leak 10 years ago, had leaked straight on through the 2nd floor. So they just closed that 2nd floor bedroom, and it had leaked right into the kitchen and through the basement, right? So she was no longer using the kitchen. This woman was a diabetic, and she was cooking on a hot plate in her living room for 10 years. That's for the next story slam of Let's Talk About Health and Housing. However, hot plate living room. So we repaired the roof, drywalled the 2nd floor, really simple, basic kitchen, and the joist in the basement that it was safe and secure. The team was installing the oven, and this beautiful homeowner said, I can now go back to church. Oven, church. Her favorite thing to do is bake, and she could show up at church again because she could participate in the bake sale. Obvious, right? That's awesome. And then my last is, and this is where it's really vulnerable, but I think most of us can agree that the work that we do is constant, and it's really hard, right? And it can wear me down pretty easily. And so it's often the facepalm moments that are the ones that are the rejuvenation and are that fill me back up of okay, we got this, keep going. So I'm cranky and I'm rolling into the office and, I got 22 bags and it's 7:15 in the morning and there's 22 meetings today and the committee meeting, and, noting the eye roll, right, as I'm doing this. So I'm getting out of my car and a Habitat family who lives across the street comes charging over, and they moved in when the little girl was 3 or 4. She deemed herself the Princess of Habitat. Anyway, Princess of Habitat comes over, big hug, and she's like, "Look at what happened," right? And she smiles up at me, and there's a missing tooth. And she's like, "The tooth fairy found me last night at our home." And I was like, that is awesome, right? That is so cool. And again, they get in their car and drive away, but it was one of those where my feet were still there because that was it. Like, the tooth fairy found them at home, and the tooth fairy also allowed that mom to create that tooth fairy moment. And that's what it's about. So I come back to what's possible. I think this is awesome. Thank you for pushing me to do this and to stay in that space of what's possible with one another. And we can't do it alone, right? So to be in a we with one another. Thank you.